Welcome to Monarchist Minute, Royalist news and discussion out of the good old US of A. I'm Charles York. Here with me is Dante and Victor Smith, and hopefully someone will join us soon because three-man shows typically don't run so well up here. So, we have quite the list of what topics for you today. We're going to once again become dangerous intellectuals. We're going to be covering sort of the gun control / society's attitude to firearms after the shooting that unfortunately happened this week. We're going to be going back to our favorite stomping ground, the whole Ukraine war thing. And some very recent news out of Cali with a certain bishop and a certain senator. But first, it is time to be dangerous intellectuals once again.
Point of order. She is the Speaker of the House, not a senator.
Oh, well, how am I
Nice
expected to know these
intellectualism.
things? I'm a monarchist.
What lovely intellectualism you have just
You know,
shown us.
if you're gonna undermine me, it's too late now. It's already 8:02. Restarting would entail actually effort on my part by subtracting 2 minutes from the timestamps that I'm making. Yeah. So there you go. There you go. You know what? We're moving on to our first topic. We're pretending this never happened, except all the people on YouTube who are going to see it happen.
I'm gonna mention it at the end of the podcast.
Yeah, just keep routinely mention my failure, just like at random intervals after I'm done stating a sentence. Before you talk, say, "You got it wrong, Charles." Anyways, so our first dangerous intellectual topic. Are we LARPers? No, of course we're not LARPers. Yeah. So the reason I brought this topic up is because a general accusation
There
thrown
you
against.
go.
There we go. Third time. Yeah. All right.
I'm glad you went to failure that time.
I am very prone to failure. You know what? I'm going to be stepping over my words all night. I'm letting you know. And then Craig's going to die, and all this. It's going to be a swimming time. Okay. Restart. Refresh. A general accusation against monarchists just to dismiss us is to accuse us of being LARPers. Now, for the uninitiated, LARPing just means, in its most literal sense, live-action role-playing. So I guess the people who do things at Comic-Con or something. I don't know. Never been. But in a more political sense, it's just a way of saying, these people don't actually believe what they claim to believe. They're just in it for the aesthetics. They're just in it for all these different surface level reasons. And if they actually had a chance to fight for their political institution of choice, they wouldn't actually do it. Even if it was simply just a ballot thrown in front of you, no consequences. Do you want monarchy, yay or nay? And yeah. So this is something of a common accusation against us specifically, although unfortunately we're not in the best company because a lot of communists, I think, also get this accusation. So it's just a general accusation, okay? Nothing special. It really is outside the normal status quo. If you're outside the normal status quo, you're probably going to be accused of this. So
I don't believe that this organization has ever been called.
No, we haven't. It's just monarchists in general, and I'm sure. I think I can't remember. Have I been specifically accused of being a LARPer, and is this just my petty way of getting revenge on that person? I don't know. But it is just a general thing that's leveled against us as a general rule.
Well, that's a quite terrible attempted revenge, if that's supposed to be your vengeance.
Well, look, okay, certain things which I normally would have done have been declared illegal by the government. So, yeah.
Okay,
yes,
so
for those online who would like examples of actual, and I say this, actual sort of LARP ideologies would be, and how do I do the most degrading voice possible for this? Based trans-strazerist hyper-Nazi hyperborean regime with trad waves and stuff. Yeah, stuff like that's an actual art, like just sheer esoteric hyper nonsense. That is LARP. We're not LARP. We genuinely believe in monarchy because that's a tenable position which has existed for, centuries into millennia, yada, yada, yada.
In fact, the oldest sort of government we know of, and all the best states we know of, and yeah. I guess other rather than just saying why these people are wrong. One of the reasons that I've been thinking about why they accuse us of it is because we, and I guess anybody who isn't outside this current status quo of American politics, which is this sort of republic thing, is a sort of I guess they sort of view us anyone is that in this sort of romantic struggle, and they just associate us with being a bunch of daydreamers and lollygags who would love to change things when really we should just be doing whatever in the current political order. So, and to those people, I would say, give us a chance to dream. The founding fathers had their chance to dream and mess everything up. Napoleon had the French revolutionaries had their chance to dream and mess everything up. Napoleon had his chance to dream and make things slightly better, but not as good as they were before the whole revolution. Why don't you let us have a chance to dream and try to make things better?
Because monarchy is
Isn't
a form of extremism, and
When's
part
it
of
gonna be
the
our turn?
yeah. Well, I think part of it too is just they think because monarchy is an older form of government, they associate it with being outdated, which is sort of the current culture's obsession with everything has to be new and up to date. Now, this is a discussion about from a documentary about British railroading in the 80s, and it was sort of an offhanded remark, but it applies so well. Not everything from the past was a bad idea, right? And in that case, they turned out to be right because after the British had built all their roads, they realized, wait a minute, this is kind of stupid. And they all started using rail again, and their rail infrastructure is a terrible mess of weird half private. No, this isn't a discussion for that. So yeah, I think part of that, the reason we're sort of dismissed is because our ideas were the thing once, and now they're not. So they assume because we discarded them, or as a society a few centuries ago, it's never going to come back. Which need I remind you of Rome? Just saying.
know how Rome ended. It
Well,
ended in the conquering of itself by the very people that they allowed in to assist them.
oh, well, that wasn't what I was going for, but what I was going for was Rome started off as a kingdom in its very early days, at least according to their mythology, and then you had this really bad king, and then they created the Roman Republic. I don't know why I said that like they are La French. Uh, they created the Roman Republic, and then it eventually gave way to the Empire, although it wasn't as necessarily as stable as a monarchy in certain times and places. But that empire, which still technically exists today in a weird way, yeah, that used to be a republic, and we're a republic, so we could be a monarchy again. Once you become a republic, that doesn't mean that suddenly you're monarchist free forever. That's not how this works. We have this sort of position as a society. Well, I guess this is another thing too. It's actually the same thing, but I was just expanding. Everyone as a society thinks of this sort of this is where we're at and where we're going to be going in the immediate future. That is just the culmination of human history or whatnot. Where our society is right now, morally speaking, is the way it should be. We used to be a monarchy in the past, then we had a revolution. So clearly, republic is the way to go. And I'm sure if we come up with some new wild, wacky government type that eventually takes over, well, not us, but because we're monarchists, but some wild, wacky government type that takes over, everyone's going to think, yes, this is the end stage of history. Once everyone gets on board with this, it will be over, and humanity will have peaked, and then we're just going to sit around until the heat death of the universe or whatever.
Charles, we have a name for that ideology. We call it communism and socialism, with this idea of, oh, there's going to be a revolution and we're going to take over the government, and then the socialist regime will eventually wither away. It will.
Into an anarchist state where the state controls the means of production. Go figure.
Yeah.
We don't
I
have
just
to
wanted.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. I just wanted to point out that monarchy, I guess, is the most natural form of government. I would like to posit that.
Oh yeah. And I think another reason for the just dismissal of monarchy is partly, I guess, maybe due to somewhat in the breakdown of the family structure, because when you are a kid, who has authority over you?
Your dad and your mom,
Okay, and who has authority over them? Back when,
your
family structure.
your grandparents.
And if they're
The,
still alive, who has authority over them?
the patriarch of the family, usually at the highest, being the great grandparent, or maybe the great great grandparent, or
If you're
if neither of those exist, just the grandparent.
yes. The family is oriented like a monarchy. And because we are a society that seems to partly because of our dismantling of the family, but even before the dismantling of the family, people thought, well, we shouldn't have a monarch just inherit things we because everyone is affected by the state. We should get to choose. Yeah, because that would work so great in a family setting where like 10 kids decide to vote their parents out of holding authority over them just so one of the siblings can promise a bunch of free cookies. And you might say, well, we're gonna, the average adult is more mature than a person who wants to, will give himself nothing but free cookies. Firstly, have you seen the obesity crisis in this country? Secondly,
Ah,
sorry for being a little rude there, but yeah, uh, yes, I mean in general, yes, we as a populace, adults are more, shall we say, responsible than a 10-year-old kid, but that doesn't change the
You have
fact
to,
that
but of course, we also have to keep in mind that a father only has authority over his children. He doesn't have authority over his brother's children.
well, yeah, but that's where the patriarch comes in. Essentially what you have. And it's like if we're going with this, father paralleling this with the family with the monarchy sort of thing, it's a little different because normally the lesser nobles come from different families and they rule over different, dukedoms and whatnot.
Regardless, I think, but
Well,
regardless.
yeah, no. I mean, the main point is that you have the patriarch of the family, whoever that is, and he's sort of in charge of the whole clan. And then you have the different parents of the kids, and they're sort of akin to the different dukes and whatnot, and that they have their authority over their kids. And in a way, that is sort of how some, at least from my admittedly lacking understanding, how a lot of the clan systems in their essence worked, and that you had the clan and the main line was in charge, and there you go, and yeah. And we all know who did away with the clan system in Scotland, the British government, and that was after a certain rebellion by Jacobites. Well, not rebellion. Actually, it was an uprising. Rebellions indicate that that you're kind of being bad and whatnot. Being a rebel is bad. So yeah, it was an uprising. There you go. Caught myself. Now that can check that off our
Well,
bingo.
The Freudian
well.
slip. The Freudian slip.
Yeah. Whoops. Uh, whoopsie. Uh, it's a good thing I'm not yet a member of the Royal Steward Society.
Wow! Well, I think that somebody in our server could actually assist you with that. I
Hmm.
believe his name is Dylan, the Prince of Ireland. Anyway, let us get back to the topic at hand here.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, this we're sort of also strayed from this topic of LARPing a little bit, but to refocus, I'm sorry for kind of taking charge here because there are just things in my head that I want to get through. But there is this other problem that I think is that these people don't want to let themselves imagine anything better, and they don't. One of the things one of the reasons people admittedly accuse us of LARPing is because we like things like proper dress and architecture, and we spend all this time thinking about what the
Beauty.
crown would be like or whatnot, which partly I don't see much of a point in that myself until we're actually close to actually achieving some sort of monarchical vision. But there is importance in the whole ceremony and the way things are going to look, because things like architecture, for instance, and clothing and all this reflect the values of the people who put it together. Now,
Yes.
if you see a guy who's going out in a t-shirt and shorts for his normal day to day, that can mean one of two things. One, it can mean he's a actually like a groundskeeper or something, and he needs to wear shorts and just a t-shirt because it's hot. Trust me, I know. Uh, if they made a stain-resistant polo that was just as cool as a t-shirt, I would totally wear one of those when I'm doing guard work. But uh, a three-piece suit that's for the working man in the field. Uh, but anyways, no. So, but if you just see a guy in general and he's not doing any sort of heavy lifting, it's his day off, and he's out in the town in a t-shirt and just a t-shirt, not like it's the undergarment. What does that suggest about him in particular? Now, I mean, he could just be having a bad day and he's going out to get some polos or whatnot,
It,
but it kind of
sugge-
suggests he
it,
doesn't
sugge- it,
care.
it suggests that he doesn't feel the need to dress up if he's not doing anything too important.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. Now, I'm not saying that I am necessarily the peak of fashion or whatnot. If I had the capacity to walk around in a suit and tie all the time, I would totally do it. But I go out, and when I'm out, I'm normally in a polo, and then they have a t-shirt underneath that polo, a plain white t-shirt underneath that polo, and some respectable jeans. Not just because not jeans. No, I hate jeans. Jeans are uncomfortable. I don't know why. People are like, "Oh, jeans are wonderful." I think they're uncomfortable for whatever reason. But my
But then
short,
your experience must only rely on wearing very skinny jeans.
no, it's not that. I don't like the fabric in comparison to
Okay.
khakis. She sounds hideous. Well, she's a guy, so.
Anyway, let
Anyways,
us.
so no. I need to make my
Also,
point. Oh,
I
sorry. I'll
have
let
my
Dante.
own I have my own controversial opinion on fashion, and I know that Charles is not going to like me for this, but I do not like polos as a concept. I don't like them. Now, I'm not the guy who's going to go out into public wearing sweatpants and like a Marvel T-shirt. No, personally, what I prefer to dress in if I'm going out is sort of nice shoes, jeans, and a long, plain, dark-colored, long sleeve collarless shirt. It's just personally better for me. I really don't like collars. If I'm gonna wear a collar, I'm not wearing it on what is essentially a modified T-shirt. I'm going to wear an actual suit. It's one or the other. I hate polos. I absolutely despise them.
I mean,
Humanity,
that's
humanity,
respectable.
humanity seeks three things: the true, the good, and the beautiful. who likes to go to the post office and stare at a nondescript, plain Jane looking corporate building for a post office, and you go in there and you just don't look around, you're waiting in line and you're just looking in front of you because there ain't nothing to look at. Whereas if you go into one of the older post offices, a beautiful building with at least some of the artwork retained, you at least can look at the beauty of the artwork if as you either as you walk in, or maybe even look at the beautiful architecture inside of the building.
And
You have something to look at in that building.
that's why
This
they
is the
sorry.
same is true of churches.
And
If
that's why they accuse us of LARPing, because we like the beauty and we acknowledge the necessity of it, and they think it's all a waste of time, and they would rather see the money spent on buildings that look even more ugly but cost just as much. Well, not even more ugly. That are ugly but still end up costing just as much in the end. But because it doesn't look good, we can feel good about ourselves because we didn't waste money on building something that looked pretty.
Brutalism is the worst architectural idea ever in the history of architectural ideas. Just making everything into a bunch of boxes with windows. It's just yeah.
like
So
every single corporate building ever in the
yeah, so
last couple of decades.
oh yeah, no, and this
Gosh.
is the thing. This is the thing. Okay, there's a college near me that's building a new building, and they're going with the retro style, right? That's
Uh-huh.
great, but by retro, it's like 60s, 70s office blandness, where the only vaguely interesting thing is the second floor is overhanging a lot for some reason over the first, and the windows get progressively like thinner as you get to one. It's just so ugly. I mean, look, I appreciate going for a retro style, but go for a retro style that looked good. Don't go for don't go back to one of the worst era. Don't go back to the early part of the worst era in architecture. Go just come on. Okay, you already winded the clock back about 50 years. Wind the clock back a couple, another 50 to 1910s era construction, or 1920s era construction. Actually, yeah, Art Deco. There you go. Go with Art Deco. Just it only takes a couple more decades to go back and find something usable. And what's annoying is, huh?
Much. And we can't afford it next to other things I won't mention on
They're
this
a
podcast.
college. Of course they can afford it. It's a university, man. They're swimming in that tuition money because of student.
Well, and
Actually, my
student loans are another topic of discussion that we can save for
Another
another
time when we
day.
have more
But
college
my
people.
what is your favorite style of architecture?
Um,
I'm
I'll let
I'm a
Dante go first.
strong Roman Catholic, but I gotta say, I really do love the architectural style of sort of like the Eastern Orthodox. I like the Greeks for all of like the what am I thinking of?
Byzantine style.
Yes, I'm thinking of the Byzantine style, and
Well, there.
also I like the roofs in like the Far East. I like the roofs, but that's it.
Actually, funny story there. So part of the way, so it's not just the what do you call it? It's not just the simple spirit of it that helps can create an architectural style. I mean, obviously that's the main important thing, and why churches are very beautiful and the architecture is pointing up because it's supposed to make you think towards heaven, but also things like the environment. So when they were building, I can't remember the name of it, but the new cathedral, Catholic cathedral in England in 1910 or the
Westminster
1910s.
Cathedral.
Oh, okay. Let's call it Westminster Cathedral. Okay. Uh, the story is, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I kind of hope it is. there was a big debate as to whether or not to go with Gothic or Baroque. I believe the two choices were. And the Archbishop or whoever just got tired of it, and he decided, you know what, we're going with Byzantine. So it's this Roman Rite parish, but it's in Byzantine, sort of like kind of like was it the Shrine of the Immaculate Conception? It has the sort of dome things. I've been in, very nice.
You thinking of
But
the Basilica?
the
Like the
Basilica, yeah,
National
I'm
Basilica?
sorry, the Basilica.
Yeah.
Um, but the thing with Byzantine is it's best suited to an area like the Mediterranean where there's a lot of sunlight, so you don't need really big windows to let the light in because there's already enough sunlight already. Now contrast that with England, where it's known for being dreary all the time, and you have a very poorly lit by natural lighting interior. So yeah, maybe the bishop should have just picked Baroque or Gothic and called it a day because, uh,
Yeah.
but fortunately, artificial lighting's
Mm.
easy enough these days. But
I
Yes,
don't
and
know. I don't know if there's a name for this sort of architectural style, but I like buildings which have a lot of water features built into them. I don't know. I really like fountains. I really like buildings with built-in sort of water passages. I feel like you know what I'm talking about. I just don't know how to describe it. Do
I
you know what I mean?
I don't know if there's a specific architectural style to it or
I
name
just
to
really
it,
like
but
that.
yeah,
I really like water. Also built in like uh sort of flora. I like buildings which have a lot of plants in them.
what about fake office plants?
No, not
Because
those.
my elementary school had those in spades.
I mean giant plants.
Oh, okay. I
um,
see you're suffering from this weird Soviet syndrome where they're in the cold and they really
What?
want some palm trees, so they build this artificial, I guess greenhouse or whatever. It's not really a greenhouse, but this room where they can, it's completely temperature controlled, so they can have plants that would normally be way out of climate, and you have all this like lush, vegetation in the middle of Siberia.
I
my
don't
favorite
live in Siberia,
architectural
my guy.
my favorite architectural style depends on the building. If we're going with a church, then I love the Gothic style of church. It just looks so beautiful. If we're going for a home, then my personal preferred, I sort of like the colonialism or Tudor style. I really enjoy looking at the old homes that were here in the colonial period.
Hmm. Um, I mean, for me, I guess the sort of varies on church, or depending on what sort of building it is. But I don't necessarily know if I have a preferred style for parishes, because I think that each of the traditional Catholic, uh, styles from all the different rites and from all the different places, whether it's
And that's,
Gothic or
yeah, and
Baroque
that's
or whatever.
yeah,
So long,
yeah, and that's not saying that I
yeah,
disagree with any styling for a church, except if it's
modern
some
and gross.
monstrosity like Patty's Wigwam in Liverpool. But
Yeah, well, no, I mean,
that is
all
a real
those,
thing, by the way. Look up Patty's Wigwam.
no, no, no.
So,
So,
but
let me,
the church that I attend, the church that sponsors the high school I attended, was built in Spanish mission style, and it was equally as beautiful, although it had been renovated.
yeah, that's also another weird thing. I like architecture, but I kind of also, part of me wants the architecture to stay where it's from. Like Spanish mission style in Maryland just sort of seems off. But anyways, no, I mean, the thing with architecture more than just the physical. the thing with architecture is it sort of represents, as I said, the values of the culture that made it. So looking at traditional Catholic architecture, whether it's Western Rite or the various Eastern rites, and you look at those church parishes, they all reflect in different ways, but they all reflect the same thing, trying to elevate your mind to the divine and making these places sort of as best we can outpost of heaven on earth. Especially because something so wondrous, I guess, happens there at every mass, where Christ comes down on the altar. I mean, obviously, we're
You could almost say that it's miraculous.
well. It's not. I mean, I don't think technically it's miraculous because because for it to be miraculous, it has to be something that you wouldn't expect to happen. And like, if I flick a light switch. Oh, you couldn't hear that. But if you flick a light switch and then the light comes on, that's not miraculous because that's what's supposed to happen. But if you flick a light switch that isn't connected to the lights and then those lights come on, that would be miraculous. But with the mass, I mean that's what's supposed to happen. Christ is supposed to was supposed to come down on the altar, body, blood, soul, and divinity when you say the word. So I don't know if it's technically miraculous because that's what's supposed to happen.
What we need, but I sorry to interject, but and include a link to this picture in the description of this video so our YouTube audience understands what I'm talking about here. Joe Capre posted a photo of the cathedral near where he lives out in California. That's a cathedral?
No. I gotta remember to do that. What is it? A Catholic? Please tell me that's not the thing. Please tell me that's not the thing they demolished the old one for. But yeah, no. The point is that all this architecture is supposed to represent the value of society, and that it's worth making this beautiful to elevate the minds of the people. And the beauty, and there is always a point, and all of our ancestors understood this in varying ways, that it was worth trying to make things beautiful, even if they were only there to serve a purely practical purpose. I mean, courthouses, there's no reason for a courthouse in of itself to look good. There's no reason for it. I mean, it's just a place for legal proceedings to happen. I mean, really, but the reason courthouses used to look good is the same reason that a lot of architecture, all architecture, was, except for the best bare bones, things that are made in a hurry. Which at that point, don't worry about making it look good; just make sure it works. Um, the whole point of making it look good is to elevate your mind at some point, and or give you something pretty to look at to help lift your spirits, I guess.
And of course, thank you, Brian, for posting this in our text chat here. St. Mary's Cathedral in Tokyo. I'm looking at this photograph and I'm wondering, is
Why?
that big building the cathedral?
I
It looks like
speaking
a
of those water
spaceship.
things that Dante mentions he likes, it sort of looks like those like rows or whatever that spout out water in a continuous like artificial waterfall thing.
You mean
Yeah,
a
it looks like
fountain?
the walls are made like that.
You mean a fountain?
No. But I mean, like a strip, like it's just like on the ceiling or whatever, and it's a strip that produces a solid, flat, or curved wall that's very thin of whatever. Anyways, my point being,
The Japanese cathedral there in Tokyo.
yeah. So
Yes.
it's not it's not good.
Listen, there is beautiful Japanese architecture that looks good and it would fit the culture of Japan.
Yeah,
What in the world is that?
and the inside, or no, this is a different place, I think, or maybe it's not. But why? It looks Anyways,
There's another photo of the outside. It
yeah. Well,
looks like you walk
let's
in.
not dwell on
Well,
the pictures because it's a
the
podcast.
inside of
But
the
yeah,
inside of a church looks okay, but the outside looks like a monstrosity.
no, the inside does not look. Anyways, let's not dwell on this because it's a podcast. Because
Of course.
it's a podcast. So no, but I mean that's the thing. You touched on the thing with Japanese architecture, and this is something where if you have cultures that are predisposed to making they understand beauty, you can have all these different types of architecture that still reflect the same things, right? So you can build churches in traditional Japanese architectural styles so long as you, of course, incorporate all the necessary Catholic elements and focus on those Catholic elements. You're essentially baptizing the architectural style, taking what works from the traditional Japanese style and ditching anything that is compatible with Catholicism. But that's what, ideally the church should be doing with every culture it evangelizes. But that's how you have all these different Eastern rites and their different architectures and all these different things, and why there isn't just one unified Catholic architectural style, because because these are just different ways of expressing that same thing. I mean, the altar always and properly understood, not like one of my maternal grandmother's parish where the altar is just a bump. It was just like a wooden platform, and then you have the that's the altar is mounted. The actual altar is mounted on this wooden bump, like riser thing. Not riser thing. It's just it's very it's you kind of get the impression it's a low church Protestant place by the looks of it. It's very no. Anyways, so the point is that church architecture of the different Catholic churches, they all emphasize what's important, and that's the altar. Your mind is always going to be drawn towards the altar and how beautiful it is. And if you look at some of those like older cathedrals, where they really had a lot of time and space, like they're like the high altars, man, those things are
Beautiful.
big, huge. To quote our former president, huge. Uh, no, and there's a reason for that because that's kind of the most important bit right there. The altar, everything beyond the altar rail, all of that is important, and it's worth putting all that money into. And people are saying, well, but the church could have spent that money on the poor. Well, firstly, who do you think the church was employing? You ever heard of a starving artist? The starving artist trope. Who do you think they were employing to paint the place? Uh, so that there's that. Who are they employing to? They hired people from the local community to go and build the place. Secondly, of course, the church does uh, go out and take care of the poor. We're the largest charitable organization on earth, but it's right to build these things well we have the capacity for the glory of God, because even though we will never be able to come close to replicating the true beauty of God, I guess, in this world, we do have that doesn't mean we shouldn't just not try, and we should always try to build things that remind us and take our mind higher, as opposed to putting us in the gutter. Do you know how depressing imagine just a city block of brutalist architecture, and it's nothing but brutalist architecture for the mind to see? Are you gonna be happy about that, or are you gonna think, right? And then you see an entire, block of traditional, all these different, older styles of architecture, like Mackinac Island, right? You have all this like early 1910s American architecture, and the Catholic parish there, which I want to say is Saint Ignatius, but that might be I might be getting that confused with Roger City, which, because I did a report and both of those cities came up. It's very beautiful up there in Mackinac Island, and there's a reason why it's such a popular tourist attraction. Look up pictures of the Grand Hotel, and obviously that's one of the more magnificent buildings on the island, because it's a hotel. It's going to be bigger, and also has the longest porch in the world. You can pay $10 to walk across it. I don't know why anyone would pay $10 just to walk on a porch, but whatever. Some people will do weird things. So yeah, no, but I mean,
So beauty.
yeah,
Now, of course, there is an objective component
to be,
to beauty, and
yeah,
and this is what we've been talking about for the past few minutes. And build if we design, it's not just buildings; it's attractive looking clothing and styles of clothing that are good purpose and fulfill a certain need. And there's also the thing inside of it. If you can have the most beautiful building in the world on the outside, and you go inside and it's just
yeah.
white paint, no windows, folding chairs inside.
Oh,
The
ew.
the altar is a fold up plastic picnic table.
Yeah,
I'm thinking, what are we doing here?
and I mean, no, I think when it comes to parishes specifically, obviously it's great to have both, but I think the inside of the parish, not where the magic happens, because it's not magic, but but where the actual sacrifice at the mass takes place. It's more important for that area specifically to be beautiful. And obviously, ideally, you have both the outside and the inside, but the inside first needs to be designed beautifully. And in a way, there's a lot of parishes where you can't really change the outside so much once you build it. So I mean, I guess you can give it a garish paint job, but why? Um, so you can mess with the outside as you can't really mess with the outside. So if you had a good looking parish, you can't really do much about that. But the important thing is the inside. And it's completely possible to take all that beautiful paint and all that, just slap it with a coat of light blue or whatever, and then rip out the altar rail, rip up this, put carpet in, because clearly carpet belongs in a place where people are inevitably going to accidentally drop the host, and and you aren't going to be able to see if you picked up all the particles, because now we're just getting into Catholic
Yeah,
Catholic architecture 101.
let's jump off the train of specifically Catholic architecture and go to other architecture. If I'm entering a post office to pick up the mail, and the building looks good, I can just stand there for a little bit and admire it. And you
And if
go in, and there's some mural of a courier. Like, there's just some ideas to beautify a building and not just slap on wallpaper that looks garish and ugly from the 60s.
Hey man, the people who installed that wallpaper, they were flying high with ideas, man.
um, anyway, I think we have.
I guess just to summarize architecture in one thing.
Right.
You should, when you're walking down the street, the buildings you see, they should be things where you can look at them and continue to look at them, and you can be uplifted by them. And if you have a city block like that, the people are walking down that city block will be disposed. They can look up and to the side of them, and they're going to see something beautiful. And with our modern architecture, you're not going to get that, and so you're just going to look straight in front of you or straight down at your phone, because there's nothing to look out outside. You might as well be watching something on your phone.
Yeah,
Um,
my phone's wallpaper looks more beautiful than some of the buildings that I look at. Now, of course, I'm in Baltimore, so a lot of the buildings are older buildings and they look good and they've held up good. But if I'm looking at, let's say, the Hilton that is out at center field of Royal Park of Camden Yards, a glass stale building, my wallpaper on my phone looks better than that.
And that shouldn't be the case, because the picture should a picture should of buildings really should be
It's
I
not
mean
even of a
the real thing
building. My
should be,
wallpaper on my phone is a bunch of flowers.
oh well, no, yeah, a building, it you should be able to look around to the world without, because we are starting to beat this topic to death, but you should be able to look out in the world and you should be able to see beauty, even if it's purely uh natural beauty, or just the trees and the brook and whatnot, or whether it's man trying to aspire to the divine and trying to make something worthy. No, well, not necessarily worldly, but trying to aspire to something greater. That is what we should be going for. And with that, unless we'll let Dante, because he hasn't talked in a minute, give his closing remarks, and then we can move on to.
I have none. Just move on.
Okay,
Very
well,
well.
very well. Our next topic, a whole, it turned it. We didn't even 47 minutes in. Is what was it again? I need to.
Charles, I have it right here.
Okay.
We are going to be talking about, once again, the gun control debate. There was a shooting that happened in Buffalo, New York recently. And according to this list you provided for us, we are to talk about society's attitude with firearms along with the gun control debate.
Yeah, I feel like that second point is something more important to talk about, because not as many. Okay, so did you know that until the National Firearms Act was passed in the 30s, you could just go down to the store and for $200, which admittedly is a lot more in today's money, someone could do an inflation calendar, but for $200, you could get a Tommy submachine gun. Just $200, and that's actually, apparently that's the reason why when you get an NFA item, the tax stamp is $200, because back in the day that would have doubled the cost of a Tommy gun. Because you had to pay the government the same amount of money just to get the thing you wanted. And despite the fact that all sorts of fun, wacky guns were around, and you could get new transferable machine guns. So if I bought it, I can just sell it off to. If I bought a machine gun, I could sell it to Dante, and then he can sell it to Victor, and yada yada yada. But each of them would have to pay a separate $200 tax stamp, I think.
You should sell me a submachine gun.
Well, if it's made pre 1986, and if I had one, I could. But unfortunately, but yeah. So pre 1986, all these wonderful, wacky machine guns you could go out and buy. All those things that GIs took home, like STG 44s and MP40s and whatever submachine guns the Japanese were running around with, type somethings. You could go out and make sure you got them properly registered, and you could sell them to your heart's content. Well, you could sell it once, and then, but but you could sell it, and then the other guy could sell it. And then in 1986, all that was put to an end. The wacky world of the recreational machine gun, where you had essentially a Tommy gun, but with the drum mag on top, like a Lewis gun that shot that had 100 rounds. Imagine the pain of going through and loading that. Yeah, that was no more. It's now much harder to get a new machine gun, I think, and I don't think they're not transferable. So I guess I don't know for sure, but I think when you die, the government just destroys it. I don't know how that works, but anyways,
believe you can will it
No,
when
I
you
don't.
die?
No. I mean, with regular firearms, you can, but these any machine gun, or I guess I don't know if it's just machine guns, but any machine gun
I think
made
there's a
after
grandfather clause. I think there's
no
a
no
grandfather clause.
no. This the whole firearms thing is a debate. The grandfather clause was any machine gun prior to 1986 or 84. 86 can be that was registered and put on the NFA roll. Those can be sold and transferred, right? But after that, they can't. Which so pre-transferable machine guns pay a pretty penny. But the point is that even though you could go out and assuming you had the money, you could go out and buy yourself a machine gun. You can get yourself a fully automatic whatever. Generally speaking, people weren't going around and shooting up places. In fact, I don't think there's been a single mass shooting outside, I guess, the gangster times where people. I don't think that they used the term mass shootings back then, but I don't think there's ever been a single mass shooting that we consider a mass shooting where anyone was actually using a machine gun. The closest thing was when that guy was using a bump stock in what was it, Las Vegas, right? Um, which interesting thing I've heard, and I don't know if this is true, but because he was using a bump stock, he was less accurate. So so if he wasn't using a bump stock and was just using regular semi-auto, he could have he probably would have killed more people because he could have actually aimed, and as opposed to just randomly hitting, he could have aimed and shot specific people and killed them. That's just what I've heard. I'm not on the ballistics team that was assigned to take that case, obviously, but society just doesn't respect firearms, and people don't treat these things as part of everyday life, because for most Americans, or I guess a good chunk of the American population, firearms were potentially a part of everyday life. If he was on the frontier and back in the good old times, on the frontier, then you had to have a gun because the Indians might be after you or something, uh, or whatnot, but or you needed a gun to hunt, or you needed a gun to do this, or you needed a gun because you were part of your militia, or you needed a gun because this, that, and the other. Nowadays, the rates of gun ownership are lesser than the rates where they were a couple centuries ago. And this gradual decline in firearms ownership has led to this loss of respect among the population for how a firearm is. I don't think there's anyone I don't think there's a group of people out there who respect firearms more than people who actually shoot them on a regular basis, right? There's 4 rules of firearm safety. Let's see if I can list them off. I don't think I have them in order, but don't point a gun at. Oh wait, always treat a firearm like it's loaded. Secondly, don't point it at anything you are not willing to destroy. Keep your finger off the trigger, and be mindful of your target and what's beyond it, right? Which is why if you go to a range, there's usually behind the place where you're supposed to pin up your targets. There's a bunch of sand or dirt or whatnot to make sure the bullet doesn't go and hit the neighbors. How many people are going to respect that law? It was a huge joke a few years ago, but there was some Democrat lawmaker, whatever, where she took a hacksaw, like an electric saw, to an AR-15, but she started to, bust it up or whatever. But the first thing she did was she sawed off part of the barrel, so she accidentally made an illegal short-barreled rifle, which is another item under the National Firearms Act. And if you do that without paying the tax stamp or having a license to do so, you just committed a felony. Uh, so yeah, score 1 for committing a felony while protesting gun violence. Yeah,
But
just
yeah, so I think that as less and less people own firearms and more firearm deaths occur in shootings, I think the trend is going to be for more gun control and maybe even an outright ban on them. Look at Australia and England. Of course, what happens with the crime rate doesn't matter because the guns are off the street. That's all they care about. And now, because knife crime has gone up in England as a consequence of the guns being banned, they want to ban knives.
Oi, Vi, you keep your fingers off Grandma's cooking. She must cut up the chicken. It's chicken all day, every day. Just anyway, no, I mean, that's the thing. There was actually a man. His name was Ludi or something, and he decided once they banned firearms in Britain, they haven't completely banned all firearms in Britain. You can still get a single shot shotgun. Whoopee. um, but they've done all this sort of thing. And once they banned, they did this major gun control thing because of a shooting that happened in the UK, which, if the laws were being followed as written, would never have happened. But once they banned it, what was I going to say? Once they banned them, this guy wrote a book called Expedient Homemade Firearm Designs or whatever, and he essentially came up with this design, and he made actually you don't need any special gunsmithing parts or anything. He just made a machine gun out of things you could buy at any old Home Depot. It was a nice single stack submachine gun. From a guy who's actually built one, Brandon Herrera, who I've referenced a couple times on this channel. He legally is able to do that, by the way, because he's an FFL, but FFL holder. He's like, it's very uncomfortable, but yeah, it works. It's a machine gun, it works, and you don't need any special gunsmithing parts to do it. So even if you got rid of all the gunsmithing parts, that wouldn't prevent you from making these machine guns. So people are always going to get
And of
guns.
course, yes, and of course, even beyond that, the bad guys are going to get the actual guns that were made to be guns, no matter what laws you pass.
And I mean, even if they don't, there are cases where the police will seize firearms that were just made. I mean, it's even a thing that some people do. You go down to Home Depot, make this super cheap thing for $100, where the firing pin is literally a nail, and then you sell it at profit to one of those gun buybacks. Well, they'll just throw you $100. Well, one guy called his the Boomstick 1776. A very ingenious pattern of weapons. I must look into that. But yes, Home Depot. Someone decided to insult my pronunciation. So yeah. So I mean, people are always going. You're always going to be able to make firearms. The question is, you have two types of people. You have the people who are going to make firearms to do illegal stuff, and then you have the people who are going to try to follow the law as written. And using a firearm
Oh,
when
wait, Charles,
firearms are,
it's properly pronounced Home Depot.
I don't care. It's depot. The word is
We're
pronounced
still going to remind
depot.
you of your failures.
Remind me of my failures all you want. It's pronounced Home Depot.
It's pronounced depot.
Okay.
Depot.
D-E.
Depot.
No. It's not. Okay, you don't pronounce the letters themselves when you are putting two words together to form a syllable. Depot. Home Depot.
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 Okay, do you want me to pronounce it as depot?
You know what? Let's throw our French. Let's throw our French sayers a bone. There's a DuPont. DuPont. So why not?
Literally a different word entirely.
I
You
don't
have lost
care.
the debate.
I
You have
don't
lost.
care. You know what?
You lost.
It's depot. Depot. Shoot!
Yeah, you said it.
No, I must. My carefully self-altered accent. Oh.
Anyway,
No. Anyways.
I think, is there anything more to discuss with?
Yeah. I guess just treat your firearms with respect. Make sure kids know what firearms are and how to use it. There was this. I don't know how common this was, but at least in the 50s. Not that the 50s were great, and as in general, because that was the height of WASP America, but specifically the P bit, but the Protestant bit, but the there they used to have police officers come in, and they used to talk to the kids and say this is what a gun does, and this is how to be careful with one, and they used to let the kids watch as a police officer shot off a 22 or whatever, and do that. Okay, schools should be doing that. Or parents, I mean, if your parents don't have um if your parents don't have a firearm, then the school system, I guess, should be there to say, okay, little Timmy or Jimmy or I don't know, Billy, this is how you handle firearms. And you know what? I'd go so far as to say to make it an elective. You know, um, I mean, schools have archery clubs. Why not have a shooting club? I'm not saying give them AR-15s, but apparently, at least in France, it was very popular just to have shooting matches with 22s. How you can be accurate with a rimfire cartridge, I have no idea, but but apparently it was done. So,
What a
um,
challenge.
well, I guess, but normally, I guess normally when you're aiming for accuracy, you want an accurate round out of an accurate weapon. But yeah, 20 rim. There's a reason why we went to center fire cartridges. Uh,
I think that most jurisdictions outside of incredibly rural areas would probably, as soon as that club was formed and somebody in the bureaucracy learned about it, it would get banned the next board meeting.
well, yeah, I mean that's part of the whole change the culture thing, because if you don't teach kids that yes, firearms can be fun sporting things, but they're also tools that can be used for good or for ill. Um, then
But you
it's
understand, guns were made for the specific purpose of killing people.
yes, and a tomahawk was made with the specific purpose of killing people, and yet it's still usable for other things. And I mean, yeah, I mean the primary purpose of the firearm, as a general rule, is to kill people. And let's just ignore the fact that there are firearms specifically designed for hunting and firearms specifically designed just to being sporting guns, right? Um, there, yes, that's the general purpose of firearms, but it's important that kids know that these things are items to be treated with respect. That these aren't things that you can just callously throw around. And maybe that will get some kids to think twice before they start snooping around for their parents, um, you know, snooping around trying to find out where mom or dad keeps the combo for the safe, written down. It just be careful is all. Just teach kids to be careful. Teach them. Don't just teach them how to, the rules of firearm safety. Don't just teach them how to shoot. Teach them how to clean the weapons. Okay, it should be, it should be a normal. It should be as normal a part of life as ironing, which is another thing that, admittedly, I also need to work on. Yeah. I don't know, Dante. You got something to say?
No, no, I got nothing to say.
All right, time to move
I
on
am
Oh,
to.
universally bland.
Oh well, well, on the Discord call, Victor and we have shades of white for our thing. So, but yet you're blue, so therefore you're not
on
bland. You
your
stand out.
end, on your end, that may be true, but on my end, I am a deep shade of red.
Ooh,
On
fancy.
my end, Charles is a deep shade of red, and Victor, you are a like egg off white.
Yeah, he's an egg off white for me too, I guess. What was he for yours? What's yours? What do you see yourself as?
What do
Oh,
I
I
see
see
myself?
myself as blue.
Okay. Well, now we can move on, if we're all in agreement, to everyone's favorite stomping grounds of this podcast. Even it's I think it's superseded Afghanistan for the first few episodes. Mariupol has fallen to the Russians, and Sweden and Finland have applied to join NATO, but at least last time we bothered to check, Turkey was opposed to it. Thoughts? I'll let someone else.
U.S., there is an update.
Oh,
The United States has pledged its support for Sweden and Finland to join NATO.
and Turkey is opposed, and without looking into it, I might be able to guess why, but it could be completely wrong. And I'm going to guess that because Turkey was kind of growing closer to Russia in the past few years, which why? Um, they might oppose it, and maybe they also don't want to escalate further. Because historically, the Russians and the Turks haven't gotten along, and another Russo-Turkish conflict. I'll look up. And as I drop a screwdriver because the main fan was acting dumb, so now it doesn't exist anymore. Yeah, let me look that up while you guys talk, because I have been taking up most of the airtime about
Okay,
your thoughts on
and
Ukraine and NATO.
well, of course, Turkey is a NATO member, and if we want to keep Turkey within our sphere of influence, we have to listen to them, and I think it is very important that we do, because I'm going to give you guys a geography reminder here. Turkey controls a little something we like to call the Bosporus. And what is the Bosporus, Dante?
Oh, I don't know. Why don't you tell us?
The Bosporus separates Europe and Asia, and it is a very, very, very narrow strip of water right by the city that is now called Istanbul, which should be called Constantinople, which is part of a reason why Constantinople is so hard to besiege.
All right. So let's see. Now I'm quoting from a CNN article, so be mindful. The crisis is brought to the fore. It was the first thing that popped up. Okay, I get to be lazy sometimes too. I mean, I am almost every
No,
week when
you don't.
preparing for this podcast, but whatever. The crisis brought to the fore long-standing Turkish grievances against Western nations and NATO allies. Well, it has given Anarcha an opportunity to use its position in the alliance to extract
Ankara.
concession.
It's Ankara.
I don't care. Ankara, but there's an A on the end. Whatever.
It's Ankara.
Ankara. Okay, fine. Ankara, an opportunity. Sorry for sounding rude. Ankara, an opportunity to use its position in the alliance to exact concessions. Turkey has complained about the lack of support it has received in fighting against Kurdish militants, which Ankara perceives as its top national security threat, has accused Sweden of harboring its adversaries and providing support to Kurdish militants in northern Syria, whom Ankara considers to be an extension of the PKK. Ankara also says that the two nations haven't responded to extradition requests, according to state media. The wanted individuals are accused of having links to the PKK, as well as FETO, the group led by US-based cleric Fethullah Gulen, whom Turkey believes was behind the 2016 failed coup attempt, an allegation Gluken denies. Finland and Sweden have voiced optimism on Tuesday that common ground can be found with Turkey over its objections. Let's see. Yeah. So, it's some weird name. Gluen. It's probably one of those names that doesn't translate well into Latin characters. But so that's
I
why
believe his name is Gulen.
I I don't know. I don't
Don't
speak
say
Arabic.
don't care. Okay, as long as you didn't say you didn't care, because that seems to just be a cop-out for you every single time that you fail.
I lack enthusiasm on the subject.
Sure.
Okay.
And
Look, if
I think
it ain't an easy name to pronounce, I don't care. Now, admittedly, my real last name, I don't think anyone who doesn't already know it pronounces it correctly. But I'm the exception to the rule. Okay, that's just the way it is. But if you're not, but other than that, if your name isn't a basic Anglo name, then why should I bother to learn how to pronounce it? Except for all my family's names. But anyway, so that's why Turkey is opposing.
except for the name Coulomb, which is not an English name. Anyway,
Well, yeah, okay, so
let's
that's why
let's
Turkey.
continue.
Yeah,
Let's get back on topic here.
so Turkey is opposing Sweden and Finland, partly, I guess, as a way of leveraging its position in trying to fight the PKK. Which part of me wants to say, dude, uncool that you're kind of levering this to your advantage. I think it's only Turkey that's opposing it. But the other part of me says, I don't want a bunch of countries entering into the West when it's degenerate like this. But then the other part of me says, well, Sweden is probably already gone, and I don't know about Finland, but maybe it's also run by the same liberal coalition, whatevers, who are for gay marriage and all that. So,
It's a Nordic country, Charles. What do you?
well, there's I don't know, man. I mean, there's got to be at least one semi-base guy in the bunch. Oh shoot, I'm not allowed to say that word. I'll edit it out. Why not? Because it
Yeah.
offends Dante.
Oh, you remember. Yeah, I really don't like it whenever people use those words in what is supposed to be professional.
Well,
The religious discussions.
okay, fine.
Shall we get back to the topic at hand here and uh, and just say as a final thought here that the only two things I can see are get the U.S. to basically bully Turkey into accepting them. Sweden and Finland could just let those guys go, or Turkey can leave NATO, and then we lose access to the Bosphorus, which means the only way into and out of the Black Sea is gone.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. Turkey is very strategically important because we didn't give Constantinople to the Greeks like we should have back at the end of the war. At least some good might have come out of it in that event. But we don't. I don't think that. How do I put this? I don't think that it is necessary that Finland and Sweden actually join NATO. I mean, if they really want the benefit of not being bullied. Oh, why am I sounding like this? Not being bullied by Russia. They can just apply for formal the U.S. to like guarantee it as if it was back in the old days when countries were guaranteed the independence of countries were guaranteed by other countries outside the massive geopolitical blocks. And if you get the U.S. to do that, then I mean Russia's not gonna invade Finland just to fight a war against the United States. I mean, the U.S. already has enough nukes to give Russia a bad time. You don't need to worry about the British and the French and their nuclear arsenals. Yeah, so I mean, we don't even really need Turkey to sign off on it. If Sweden and Finland really just want the protection, a guarantee of protection, just have them just have their independence and sovereignty be guaranteed by the United States and
However,
have that
the
backed
United
up by
States
formal
has a
treaty.
problem with traditional treaties. Always have, always will.
Well,
It
you know
says
what?
in,
We signed on to NATO, so you know what? That whole we're above treaties, limiting Congress's ability to decide our foreign policy. Oh, just stop it. We dropped that pretense years ago. We're all on board with joining up to naval treaties, like or not just to treaties, like the Washington Naval Treaty. And then we cheated with the Washington Naval Treaty, but then again, so did everyone. So, you know,
wash.
well, actually, the British didn't technically cheat, but they cheated. Everybody essentially cheated. Um, Yeah. So, let's see. Is there anything? Let's see. We mentioned the siege of Mariupol, and how that's over, and now the Russians essentially just have the entirety of the eastern coast of Ukraine, from the Crimea to Russia proper. So, I guess that's a step up for the Russians. Uh, so they have secured land access to the Crimea. So I assume that's something that Putin would want in the peace treaty. But Putin would be foolish. Well, not foolish necessarily, but Putin really should, whatever happens, guarantee that the Crimea will have a ability to get water, because apparently the Crimea has been dying a very water. Uh, Ever since the Russians took over the place back in 2014, they haven't been getting water because the water was shipped in from places inside the Ukraine proper. So yeah, that's that's partly why the Russians sort of needed to secure that area. Well, not Mariupol. Mariupol is kind of halfway between the Crimea and Russia proper. So yeah, hopefully the war will be over soon. I don't want I don't I don't want this war to go on and cause a lot more deaths. I guess my position now is, as long as um as long as the rights of the Catholic Church are respected by the victor, I don't care who wins. I mean, and of course, neither side is actually going to respect the full rights of the Catholic Church, because the Catholic Church has a right to be very prominent in society in terms of, you know, morality and all that. But so long as neither side is actively infringing upon the rights of the church, I uh I don't particularly uh care. I but I don't really want Kiev to win, because gay pride parades or whatnot, and part of me doesn't, and you know, I've concerned about how Russia's handled Catholics in the past. So maybe glorious. Oops, I need to stop messing with things. Okay, no, the screwdriver fell with the same screwdriver. I'm a little apprehensive about that. Yeah, just let it be over soon, so people stop dying, please. Just Ukraine, if give just give Russia the ethnically Russian parts of the Donbass and see if they'll take that. Maybe promise to keep the water running. Just get this war over with. Dante,
What?
Victor, somebody.
Oh,
Nope.
poor
Just
Charles.
you can continue to monologue all that you want. I want to see you wear yourself out.
Friends, Romans, countrymen.
Anyway, shall
I
we?
came to talk topics, not to change them. Although I'm perfectly happy to
However,
do.
I believe that we should change over to our last scheduled topic, and this is a breaking news story from earlier today. Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone of the Archdiocese of San Francisco, California, has informed Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, born Nancy D'Alessandro, originally from Baltimore, that she is to refrain from Holy Communion and that all ministers of Holy Communion in the Archdiocese of San Francisco are to refuse her if she decides to go up. This is a canonical punishment under Canon 915. This is not a formal notice of excommunication because this does not take effect in the Archdiocese of Washington, where she mostly resides because of her work in Congress. So cue her getting ready to go to a Catholic Mass in DC and being given communion, much to the delight of the people that she will be in contact with to take professional photographs.
Yeah. Firstly, it's a good thing that the archbishop, did this. I mean, formal excommunication, I guess, would have been preferred, but this isn't something. On the one hand, it's good that this has happened because there should be repercussions for publicly supporting something that is intrinsically evil. But at the same time, this isn't something that we should be dancing in the streets about. It should be treated with the same uh, attitude as we would when a criminal gets the punishment that he justly deserves. We're not happy that the crime has taken place, and we want the criminal to, what the? Okay, did you guys hear that?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear
Yeah,
that.
that car ain't from from my neighborhood. Let me tell you. I think it was a truck. Uh, very very nice. I'm sure that wouldn't freak me out of my wits at 4 in the morning if. Uh, anyways, no. So we shouldn't be. This isn't something On the one hand, we should be thankful that justice is being dealt in a small way. But on the other hand, it's sad that this had to happen in the first place, and hopefully, this will have uh, the desired effect on her. I don't know, but the whole point. And the point of excommunication, even though this isn't excommunication, but excommunication is supposed to, at least from my understanding, I could be wrong, and if I've made any errors before or about to or will, I recant and will remove them. But the point of excommunication is it's just formally, canonically, is just emphasizing something that has already happened. You've already excommunicated by your actions. The church is just saying so, that you're outside the bounds of the church. And the point of that isn't just to like laugh and deny you the sake of the sacrament for um for its for just for our amusement. It's actually for your benefit. Firstly, that you see um what you're doing as wrong and will hopefully repent, and you and also because if you receive the sacrament unworthily, I'm not sure if this was the intended purpose or not, but we know from I want to say it's St. Paul. If you receive the sacrament unworthily, you are consuming your own condemnation. So, yeah, there's a reason why it's so important to be in a state of grace and to be completely in communion with the church before you go up to receive the sacrament. Because it's not like, as I guess some people would like to believe, if you're not in a disposition to receive it, it's just nothing happens. No, it is if you're in a state of mortal sin and you receive the sacrament, that's another mortal sin right there. That you had to go to confession about. Um, so yeah, if Nancy Pelosi remains obstinate and she can't reconcile her if she decides that, you know what, abortion, I gonna remain pro-abortion or whatever. If she decides that, then she should not. Then she should just stop the pretense of being Catholic, because she's you're not. I mean, if you're denying that, you're not. I mean, it's like, if you want to say you're Catholic, but you don't believe what the church believes, then you're not Catholic. This whole thing on abortion, it remains unchangeable, right? This isn't this is
This
something
isn't
that
like
isn't
the
going to
death
change.
penalty. This isn't like the death penalty.
Yeah, this is something that is unchangeable, because it is murder. And I think it was the Council of Jerusalem or somewhere that said, you shall not kill a baby by abortion, or child by abortion. So,
And I think
correct.
that somebody could look that up and tell us in the YouTube comments.
Yeah,
If
that's
you made
something.
and if you made it this far in the video,
Come and
we
join
would
our
like to
Discord. You can talk
we
to
would
us.
like to ask you a quick question. We would like to ask you a quick question. If you have made it this far in the video, we would like you to use the comment section down below to
It boosts the
tell us
ratings.
what your favorite type of architecture is.
Well, that's what you want them to say. Anyways, no, I mean, so, I hope that this will give strength to all the bishops who have these people, these politicians, or even public figures who aren't necessarily politicians under their jurisdiction, to act out, and not just for the abortion thing, but for other issues as well. Other issues where people are going up against these teachings of the church that are unmovable, like gay marriage and transsexualism and all that. Because this is jeopardizing. It's jeopardizing people's souls potentially. I mean, you have somebody who says, "Well, Nancy Pelosi's a Catholic, so therefore it must be okay to believe this." And I don't know how many of those people are. There could be zero. But I'm just saying there's a potential for this, and this is why your personal behavior as a Catholic and what you do as a Catholic is so important around other people. Because if you have a small town where the only Catholic is a drunkard, right? Uh, people are not going to develop a positive perception of Catholicism if their only experience with Catholics is a drunkard. Now, obviously, I don't think there's that many people where their only experience of Catholics is Nancy Pelosi and the other Democrats. Democrats or the other pro-abortionists and pro-gays marriage people in Congress. But still, if people think that the church thinks that this is acceptable, then either they're going to have a twisted view of Catholicism and they're going to accept something that isn't true as true, or they are going to deny the faith and they're going to oust themselves from potentially joining it because they think that the church believes something that it doesn't actually believe. So either way, this being a bad Catholic is always, especially when you're in a public position, is always going to it has consequences. And that's why I have to be, because even though 193 subscribers or whatever, I still, even if it was one person who was actually viewing this all the way through every week, I have to try and remind myself that I'm not a theologian, so I can't just accurately discuss things, and I have to preface everything with, "This is what I think the church says. Don't quote me on it. And if I'm wrong, I recant." Right? Um, because someone might listen to this and they may say, "Oh, well, Charles says this, and it turns out what I said was wrong," and they might go up believing that, and I might be on the hook for that. Yeah.
And priest, my pastor said in a talk that he gave that essentially a politician needs to have a very, very active and deep spiritual life. And we can get into that in a completely separate podcast that isn't Monarchist Minute, because we don't have time to discuss the steps in the spiritual life here on a political podcast. But suffice it to say that if you're not thinking about God in some way every day, then you probably shouldn't be a politician. Or at the very least, you shouldn't be a high-ranking politician like our illustrious Speaker of the House.
And
All right, and it appears that unless anybody has anything else to say, I think the dead air tells me that it's time for wrap
yep,
up.
yep. Yeah. So, Vic, just one more time, I guess I can bend the rules just one more time. We'll let you plug the social medias, and then I'll do the prayer and that sort of thing.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone that listened to us live today. If you are watching us on YouTube, we record this podcast on Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on our Discord server. Link to our Discord server, as well as a link to our other social medias, including our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Gab, are in the description down below.
All right. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost, amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost, amen. Well, until next time, may God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.